Welcome back to the FutureWerx podcast, where we take a bold look at the technology shaping tomorrow's battle spaces. I am Scott McJunkin, your host, and today we're thrilled to welcome Hahna Latonick. Hahna is a force in cybersecurity with nearly 2 decades in defense and has been featured on major networks like Fox Business and is a DEFCON CTF finalist. With her expertise as an ethical hacker and director of security research at Dark Wolf Solutions, Hahna has a front row view of AI's impact on security. Today, she's here to share her perspective on how AI is transforming cybersecurity in defense. Hahna, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's get a little bit of a perspective on your background and how that has led to what you're doing today.
Excellent. So, as you mentioned, I'm Hahna Latonick, and I've been working in the defense industry for the past 18 years, specializing in both offensive and defensive cybersecurity for the Department of Defense and several defense contracting companies. In my role as the Director of Security Research, my team is focused on finding zero-day vulnerabilities in a variety of different technologies, so major OS desktop platforms down to embedded systems like routers, switches, mobile devices, especially on the Android side. So my expertise is in reverse engineering, vulnerability research, capability development, as well as machine learning. So it's been an interesting career over the past 18 years. When I look back on this, never would have imagined where I am today, but it's been one hell of a ride.
What has your experience in ethical hacking and exploring all those vulnerabilities? What do you think AI's impact is going to be now that it's here and becoming more ubiquitous? What do you think that's going to do with the vulnerability landscape?
Well, the interesting thing are the new types of vulnerabilities and attacks that we're seeing compared to traditional cybersecurity threats. The biggest concern are adversarial attacks, where attackers or adversaries use malicious techniques in order to disrupt the performance and accuracy of AI models to ultimately deny, disrupt, degrade, deceive, or destroy, say, uncrewed systems or any other type of platform that's using that model. So there's definitely I would say, paradigm shift as far as how we go about not just evaluating and assessing these capabilities, but trying to account for these new types of attacks and how to protect against them.
How do you protect against them?
Well, essentially, there's different ways, right? But one of the main recommendations is to perform red teaming or pen testing of these AI models, specifically conducting adversarial attacks or experiments to the model before they're actually deployed, right? We want to be able to expose our models to malicious inputs to see how they behave, and how to determine what vulnerabilities are arising from them, what potential, I would say, incorrect outputs these models are providing to the user, so that we can address that first before our adversaries find them before we do.
Okay. And is that okay? And specifically with Dark Wolf Solutions, what challenges are you facing whenever it comes to AI being integrated into more and more of your work?
Well, I would say there's a couple things. One of the major concerns that we're observing is like data leakage, for example, right? Where you can send a response or provide an input to the model for it to disclose or leak information that it shouldn't. And one of the underlying reasons behind that is not necessarily having the appropriate, say, role-based access controls in place that prevent the model from accessing resources that it shouldn't, right? Seeing how the models are configured from a security perspective that need to be addressed or resolved in order to prevent these types of occurrences or disclosures from occurring.
Okay. And what, like, as far as the landscape of cybersecurity research, AI, how is that changing what you've done in the past, and where do you think it's going in the future?
Well, the thing is that what's been amazing with where we are today with AI is the accessibility right? Everyone and their mom and their grandparents now have access to AI, whether not just on their laptops, but even on their phone, right? You can use, ChatGPT, for example, on the go. And so with that accessibility, there's a lot of power that comes with having access to such vital information, right? Where now you can just ask any question and get hopefully an accurate answer. And that could be used for good, but it could also be used for bad, right? Where we've seen cases where you can not only use AI ML for defensive purposes, but also for offensive, where it's very easy and for the everyday, I'll just say script kiddies, the usual term, but the everyday person can just now create an exploit without having much expertise. And so this raises the question of, okay, what safeguards do we need to have in place? When we talk about like AI safety, the one question that comes to mind is like, how easy is it for someone to just ask ChatGPT to give me the recipe to create a bomb, right? But from a cybersecurity perspective, it's okay. Can you just give me an exploit that allows me to compromise this server or this company, or very easily being able to create malware, ransomware? Like, how do we ensure that we prevent those cases from happening for the general public? Because again, with great power comes great responsibilities, and we need to make sure that not only are we developing AI responsibly, but we're also using it responsibly.
ChatGPT can be used to create malware?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah, actually, I'll share an anecdote where, so I was teaching one of my reverse engineering courses, and we were talking about how AI is being used for reverse engineering. And during the discussion, one of my students brought up the case of like he was reversing malicious Chrome extensions. And with these Chrome extensions, you can easily just see the code. And the entire extension was made with ChatGPT, left all the prompts, like the responses and comments from ChatGPT. But essentially, this was a malicious Chrome extension that was stealing your information, was doing data collection, and then sending that back to, we'll just say a malicious server. So that's just one case where this extension was approved. It was available on, I'll just say, the Chrome marketplace for use. And if that's just a Chrome extension, you can just imagine what else can be made that we're using every day, either whether it's a mobile app or any desktop applications where we can easily or accidentally download something that we think is legitimate, but is actually malicious on the back end.
I am amazed that the ChatGPT prompts were still in the code as well.
It was just copy pasta.
So they were like, hey, this is going to be malicious. It's going to be found out. Don't care. I'm going to steal a lot of data while it's up.
Exactly.
Okay. And I learned two new things. ChatGPT can be used for that. And also you said script kiddies.
Yeah.
For newbies.
Exactly. Yeah. Newbies. Yeah. Back in the day, they still use the term at times. But yeah, it's just like, if you just think of kids or high school students that are discovering hacking for the first time, we'll say. And yeah, that's just the term to describe a newbie to hacking.
Well, you mentioned that one of the biggest threats and concerns that we need to consider is the accessibility to technology that was usually safeguarded in the past by either extreme knowledge and expertise in a specific area, and or access to the data. And now that barrier has been lowered significantly.
Yeah.
And that is a big concern. Is the DoD recognizing this, and how are they preparing for it from your perspective?
Yeah, so there's been great collaboration between, we'll say, industry and the DoD and the U.S. government with respect to developing these very innovative AI capabilities and technologies, right? With, I would say, the latest versions of ChatGPT, even Gemini and others, they are implementing these safeguards to further prevent I will say harmful requests that are being inputted by the user. And so there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but it does create this, I would say, duality of what do you allow the public to do, but also in utilizing these very powerful technologies, what you also allow the government or military to do. We had the executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence that was put out October 2023. Last month, we had the National Security Memorandum that builds upon that executive order that directs federal agencies to adopt AI technologies to further advance national security objectives. And so there's definitely this balance that needs to be maintained. Again, as far as allowing something that you wouldn't necessarily want the public to be doing that would be allowed for government and military use in support of our national security.
And that is primarily, that's a big concern for me as a citizen. I think anybody listening to this or watching this video would be, we do want access to information, especially in all the positives that AI gives us. However, how are the bad guys going to use it? How could they use it?
Right.
And we're not talking about little stuff. These are big things that do concern everyday citizens, any American. And the work that you're doing is probably more and more fascinating every single month. Yeah, that goes by. Like there's probably a new thing developing in AI and a new way that it can be used in malicious ways. How is that? If we take the progress that's been happening so far from the introduction of ChatGPT, actually since Google search back in the day.
Yeah.
And we extrapolate that progression and we extend it over 10 years, 15, 20 years. Now, this is just your perspective, all right? Not a representative of any organization. Just what do you think is going to happen?
These are things that keep me up at night.
Yeah.
I wish I had a crystal ball. But of course, I'll
let's pretend you have it right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
These are definitely my personal opinions, not of that of my employer. But the fascinating thing is the speed and scale in which AI technologies are evolving. What really interested me in getting into cybersecurity is that there's always new technologies to learn. There's always new types of attacks that we need to defend against, or even on the offensive side, there's always new security protections that we need to figure out how to bypass. But the evolution of those things weren't as rapid as AI, where what we learn today can easily become obsolete by tomorrow. And that can be frightening because it feels like, let's admit it, we are in an AI's arms race, whether people agree with it or not. And for, I would say, countries that end up leading the development and deployment of AI technologies are going to have a huge advantage, especially in a military context. And so with the rapid evolution of AI, we're constantly trying to keep up, right? But at the same time, we need to recognize the potential consequences or harm of this rapid evolution, where we don't let things spiral too quickly out of control, or spin out of control too quickly. And so with that concern, it further emphasizes the need for collaboration between the DoD or the government and industry, so that we don't necessarily, I would say, shoot ourselves in the foot. The way that we live today is going to be, I think, extremely different in the next, I'd say 5 to 10 years because of AI, in that it is going to allow us to no longer, as like one of the discussion points from the FutureWerx event yesterday, it will allow us to automate and address the mundane so that we can focus on what truly matters, where we can start to invest more time, money, and resources in going after these moonshots. But our everyday lives, whether what we do at home, what we do at work, is going to be quite transformed because of AI technologies in the next, I'd say, 5 to 10 years.
You mentioned an AI arms race, and anytime that's happened in the past, when you mention arms race, there's a pretty clear perspective on what we're trying to accomplish, like more bombs, more missiles. Like I can define that from my perspective. What is the end goal for AI arms race? Are other competitors out there going for an ultimate goal? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, on the battlefield, we're going to see more drone swarms versus drone swarms, right? Where we don't necessarily have to risk human life going out into the battlefield to combat the enemy or the adversaries. It's going to be machines fighting machines, right? Almost like the Terminator, right?
Oh no.
And we won't talk about Skynet. But, so I mean that is going to be a new reality that will occur much sooner than people think. Outside of, I would say, a military context, let's say within a business context, AI is going to transform how business is done, how quickly we can produce new products, new capabilities, new services, and quickly turn that around to consumers. Of course, that raises the question of, will AI replace people's jobs? In some cases, it already is, right? We see in the news that people are being laid off because of advances in AI, which is unfortunate. However, at the end of the day, it's not really AI that is going to replace your job or humans. It's the people who know how to use AI that will replace what you're currently doing. And so it's, for me, I would say important that you don't necessarily have to be an expert in AI, but everyone needs to have an understanding of what it is and how to use it. Even if it's ways to improve your productivity. Yes, there's a theme of, hey, everyone's going to get an assistant now and using AI, right? If you have a question, just ask ChatGPT, for example. But the next wave is not just having a new assistant, but having an AI team with the deployment of AI agents, right? And so that can be huge, especially with respect to, say, entrepreneurship, right? Maybe you can't necessarily, hire a designer or graphic designer, a programmer, or even say a secretary, right? A receptionist. Well, now we can have this crew of AI agents that can help launch new businesses to the point where, okay, now I can start raising capital or generating revenue where I can employ people to assist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So AI is going to transform entrepreneurship in itself. And so I think it's hard to deny what AI is and what it can do and the impact that it's already having. The question becomes, how do you want to be a part of that transformation?
For people that are interested in AI, they don't see the world from your perspective, right? They see AI, they know it's there, they use it once in a while to write emails. But let's say someone is interested, someone watching right now, and they want to get more involved, integrate it more into their lives and personal life. What would some advice be for them?
First thing I would Google is AI 101, right? Just to understand the basics. I would recommend setting up a ChatGPT account just to even have some basic interactions, just to see what's involved. From there, if you're interested in prompt engineering, for example, which will help you understand how to write more effective prompts to get more precise and accurate answers from a large language model like ChatGPT. That is a growing need within the industry. And then From there, I always, recommend when you're curious about a subject, check out any YouTube videos that are out there on AI, on ChatGPT, on prompt engineering, podcasts like this one that we're
this is probably the best resource for them right
exactly,
now.
Your number one resource.
Number one. You got to watch this video first.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out videos, podcasts, books that are out there, just to start gaining an awareness. And then from there, if you want to take it a step further and specialize in certain areas of AI.
Awesome. Thank you. And last question, what is one piece of advice if you could give to the DoD about the future of AI and cybersecurity? What is one piece of advice that you would give?
My recommendation would be to further increase collaboration with industry. I know at times that the government would like to do things themselves. And, from their perspective, they probably believe that they can do things better in certain ways, which can be true at times. But it's going to take all of us to achieve the future that we want for ourselves, for our families, for our country. And we can't do it alone. And so I would encourage the government to, host even more industry days, of offering more SBIRs, which are small business innovation research grants, to encourage not just industry, but also small businesses to get involved in shaping our AI capabilities in our future of tomorrow. But also, I would encourage industry to also be proactive in reaching out to the government, showcasing their capabilities. But also, there's what I've been observing throughout this year as I've gone to different events, speaking on different panels, as well as listening to different panels, is that industry always wants to have an incentive to get something done. It's like, oh, well, the government needs to incentivize us to do this. And I disagree with that. For me, it is, as a person, someone that holds myself accountable and at a high standard, I look at it as my responsibility to do the best that I can in support of my neighbor, of my country. And so I feel that industry also needs to take the responsibility of, I would say, determining what more can they do, right? From a responsible development, responsible innovation, and developing responsible AI, hold yourself to higher standards and providing higher quality products to consumers that not only enable us to achieve a certain goal, but you're producing secure, safe, and trustworthy technologies. And so by bringing everyone together, industry, government, military, academia, I would say, check the egos and expectations at the door. We have hard problems that we need to solve. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's be as creative as possible and as collaborative as possible to get the job done. Because if we don't do that, we're only putting ourselves at a disadvantage, and it only deserves our country.
Hahna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
If you like that video, please go ahead and like and subscribe and stay up to date with all things happening at FutureWerx. We're always trying to discover what the future has for us. I'm Scott McJunkin, and I'll see you next time.